Good morning, YouTube. This is Chris over at SkyTech Enterprise Solutions, and today we'll be looking at how Splunk services are represented under Windows services. So let's get into it. So the laptop that I'm using now for this video is a Windows 10 professional operating system. And as with most Windows installations or operating systems, any software that you install uh, runs under your services, right? So we'll just say for the most part, some of the services are part of Windows itself, and others are software that you install on your own. Uh, and these tend to run as services. You can stop them, you can start them, etc., etc., etc. So how do I get to Windows services to look at all my services that are currently running? So the best way to do this is to go to your taskbar at the very bottom here and click on your search icon. And once it's open, you can type in services and you'll see this icon here, which is a couple of gears, one large, one small. Click on that and it opens up your services, right? So this is the same window that I have in the background. And, it basically comes with two tabs, right? So there's extended view and then the standard view. So if you want to take a look at it, the extended view, so the standard view gives you your services, and it also tells you the description, the status, startup type, and the log on as. And as you can see, my log on as is local system network service. These are the default or automatic services that are running a bunch of these services. Okay, or let's say the log on accounts are running these services here. So these are all accounts, local system, network service. These are accounts on this computer that are running these services. Okay, let's look at the startup type. Is it manual? Is it automatic? Manual trigger start, and so on and so forth, right? We have delayed start here, and we'll get into that shortly. But I want us to focus on the extended tab here, and we'll click on a service to just, kind of get some more detail about it. In this case, we're more interested in the Splunk service. And once you've, browse over to your Splunk service, you'll notice that there are actually two services here, right? And on my laptop, both services are running. If you look under status, the startup type is automatic, which means if I shut down my computer and I start it, so if I reboot, Splunk will automatically start running, right? The logon account that's running these two services is the local system account. So it's not something that I'm using my personal account to run Splunk. It's the local system that's running Splunk. Both are running, and we'll take a look at some of the features here. So here I can stop and I can restart Splunk. Okay, I can pause it and I can resume it. Okay, I can also refresh the service itself. Let's say there's a lag in the behavior of the service, or something happened to it and I'm not getting output when I run my queries in Splunk itself. Then I can come in here and refresh it just to kind of shake it up a little and get it to run properly. I can get some help over here for Splunk itself, and then I can also go to properties. If we click on properties, we'll see the general information. We have several tabs. One is general, one is log on, recovery, dependencies. The general tab pretty much gives you the service name, display name, description, which is this stuff right here, and the path to the Splunk exe file. Okay. And here we have our startup options, right? You can select automatic, you can select manual, you can disable Splunk completely. Manual means when I reboot this computer, I need to come in here and start Splunk manually. And that's not what I want. I want it to be automatic. I can stop Splunk, I can start it, I can pause it, I can resume it. Okay. Again, we're looking at the log on as account, and this is the local system account. Okay. You can change it to another account, but that's not what I want to do. So we'll stay with local system. And this recovery tab basically gives me the option to say if Splunk were to fail, if it crashes due to whatever, maybe my system is overloaded or Splunk itself experiences a catastrophic failure, what action do you want to take? So here it's set to no action. I can say automatically restart Splunk, right? When it fails again, restart the service, which is Splunk. And for all subsequent failures, I want you to restart the service. Okay, so I can make this option the way I want it to be, hit apply, and every time Splunk crashes, it'll just restart itself automatically. I can also say, hey, if it fails the first time, run a program, and the program could be anything. It could be, copy all log files into a secure location, right? So I can go investigate the crash itself, maybe using another Splunk installed on a different computer. I could say, hey, if Splunk crashes the first time, simply restart the computer. Okay, so these are things you'll do based on your enterprise environment, directives, right? So these are things that are internal, but by default, this is what comes with Splunk install. So I'm gonna go over to dependencies here. This is a little more advanced. And if you read it, it says some services depend on other services. Well, some services depend on other services, system drivers, or load order groups. If a system component is stopped or is not running properly, dependent services can be affected. So here you may have an issue, a situation where you want Splunk services to depend on another service, right? So you may have, who knows, it could be some sort of a program that is monitoring Splunk in general or all services in your system, and you want this Splunk install to be dependent on that program. So if that program stops, then Splunk stops as well, and etc. I haven't seen this used very heavily, but this is also an option if you want to go that route. Okay. And the same will go for the Splunk. So that was for Splunk D service. And then the same will go for the Splunk forwarder service as well. If you go in here, same deal, right? You have your logon tab, you have your recovery tab, you have your dependency tab, and then you have your general tab as well. All right. So now let's go into this and see what the description here is saying. So the Splunk service here description basically says Splunk is the indexing and searching engine for Splunk, a data platform for operational intelligence. It is required for Splunk instances acting as an indexer. If it's stopped, Splunk will not process data and will be unavailable for search. Okay, so that statement, if this service is stopped, Splunk will not process data and will be unavailable for search. Splunk Web depends on Splunk. Okay, please see splunk.com for more information. Questions can be submitted to yada, yada, yada. So this service is very important. If you stop it, then Splunk will not process data and will be unavailable for search. Although the interface might, I don't know, the interface may or may not be there. In another video, I will actually stop this service and go to my Splunk installation to see if it works or not. Okay. Again, this is the indexing and searching engine for Splunk itself. I mentioned in my previous video that Splunk comes in, once you install Splunk, you have multiple components to that one software, right? Which allows you to install these services on different machines within a configuration when you want to do advanced distributed Splunk installs, right? That's basically when you get into the Splunk architect level, right? Or you might be a Splunk administrator and your office might require that you go install Splunk on a different environment, different platform, different server, etc. So those are advanced concepts. All right, let's go over to so yeah, before we jump into the next service here, this Splunk web is also a component of Splunk that I'm going to look into probably in another video. So I'll just keep that in mind here. Let's go to the Splunk forwarder service. And the description here says Splunk forwarder is the remote data collection service for Splunk. Okay, so the Splunk service was a indexing and search engine and searching engine, indexing and searching. Whereas the Splunk forwarder service is the remote data collection service for Splunk. A for Splunk, basically. So if you have data sitting on a file share somewhere, could be outside of your network or somewhere else, this service actually is your remote data collection service, okay? If this service is stopped, Splunk will stop collecting and sending data to Splunk indexers. So this is your indexer. This guy here is basically collecting and sending data to your indexers, right? So if you stop it, your indexer will no longer get fresh data. So it cannot, therefore it cannot index data. And so if it's stopped, Splunk will stop collecting and sending data to Splunk indexers, which may result in data loss. Right. So these are equally, critical services of Splunk, of a Splunk install. And yeah, so it makes sense to keep them running automatically every time you do a restart of your computer. I mean, these services should simply just start on their own. And you might also want to restart the service if something goes wrong here. And I would say give it some time to breathe, right? You don't want to be trying to restart it if something bad happens, and then you kind of like don't give your server time to cool down after a crash. You can also change your fail count number. You can change it after 2 days, right? Set it. But these are some of the, I guess, the background inner workings of Splunk installs. So this here is talking about a Splunk install on your computer. We're not talking about Splunk in the cloud. Splunk in the cloud, you get your web interface, you have your username and password, you log in, and you're in Splunk, right? So all this software services are not even your responsibility at that point in time, which is one of the main benefits of having software or service or even servers in the cloud. That's one of the big selling points of cloud platforms. Okay, but if you're installing software locally on your server or your laptop or your desktop or your what is it, workstation, these are the two services that stand out in terms of Splunk. So we conclude our video today, and there'll be a follow-up video where we're going to look into the Splunk web and do a deep dive and try to figure out what exactly that is. So yep, you can watch this video over and over to kind of get more familiar with the Splunk services that are installed on a Windows computer. All right, guys. So we'll end this video here, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.